global headlines, we've been looking at this graph for some time, and there is definitely now some good news, particularly in Europe. Most European countries are recording a decline in new cases, but there are 6 or 7 exceptions, including Russia. Turkey is having a very severe second wave, and Sweden has still not reached its peak. The decline up the top in the Americas is not due to the US or for Canada. It's due to some declines in Latin America. The decline in Asia is almost all due to a continuing reduction in India. More bad news from our region is that Japan, South Korea, and Hong Kong are all experiencing clear third waves. So these are the first countries in the world to have third waves. Deaths, which lag behind cases by 2 or 3 weeks, are also starting to go down, particularly in Europe. Now, there are now 100,000 people hospitalized in the US due to COVID. That is a record for the country. And you might think, oh, maybe it's not so bad in a country of population of 330 million, but it's equivalent to 7,500 in Australia. Now, today, there are 21 people in hospital due to COVID in Australia, and they're all return travellers. So the carnage continues in the US with this record number of hospitalizations. Now, I just thought I'd finish this segment with not raw numbers, but a look at what's happened over the previous year in different countries according to attack rates and death rates. So these are the 10 countries with the highest attack rates. Now, a couple of them, like Luxembourg and Bahrain, have tested more than 100% of their population. So on average, they've tested everyone once in Bahrain and in Luxembourg twice. But the country at the top has not got a high test rate. And so I would imagine that the test positivity rate in Montenegro is very big. And then we have Belgium, Qatar, Czech Republic, the US. Note that the US has a higher testing rate than Australia. So down to Australia, our politicians love saying we've got the highest testing rate in the world. We rank number 13 at the moment as a country, but if New South Wales and Victoria were countries, New South Wales would rank number 10, and Victoria has tested basically 1/2 of its population on average, and it would rank number 6. Now, who are the lowest? Well, they're almost all low and middle income countries with very low test rates. Now, Australia is the exception. We have a high test rate, but you'll notice Japan there. And it's very surprising to me just how low their testing rate has been. I don't know the reason. Now, when you look at death rates, the highest rate in the world is Belgium, followed by Peru, Spain, Italy, the United Kingdom, Argentina, North Macedonia, Bosnia, Mexico, and Brazil. And have a look at the case fatality ratio for Mexico, 9.5%. So that's 1 in 10 people infected have died. But Mexico has a very low testing rate. So they may be, or probably are, underestimating the number of cases. Australia, by comparison, has a rather high case fatality ratio, probably reflecting the disproportionate number of aged care home residents who were infected and were at high risk for dying. Finally, the lowest, well, China by far, 3 deaths per million. But note that their case fatality ratio is also high. And that indicates to me that they have not detected all the cases. So they're underestimating their cases. Now look at Singapore, 0.05%. That is by far the lowest case fatality ratio in the world, and they also have the second lowest deaths per million, followed by South Korea and Malaysia, also with very low case fatality ratios. And then we have Ethiopia, Japan, has a very low case fatality ratio. And as I've said already, Australia 3.3%.